Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Art of Creation show, where we look at how choice creates, and different possibilities for creating a life and a living that actually work for you. So I am Rebecca Boswell. I will be your host today, and today we are joined by special guest Sylvia Puentes, and she is coming to us from California. And she is going to speak with us today on being you and creating from your voice. She is regional creator for the Americas for Access Consciousness, as well as a certified facilitator and master class facilitator in the specialty of right voice for you. So thank you so much for coming and joining us today, Sylvia. We're excited to have your voice and so much more with us on the show today.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. I'm excited to be here. I love, bringing out the tools and different things about what I do and what the possibilities are for all of us creating that life that we truly desire, that we never knew we can actually ask for and have. So I love the show. I love everything you've said so far. And yes, from beautiful California.
Excellent. Now you've been traveling all over, and I know you're headed to Colombia you'll be in Colombia this weekend.
Yeah.
So you are bringing your voice all around the world and inviting others to really come from a place of their voice. And I was wondering if you would speak to us today about, we hear people say all the time, finding our voice. And I hear you actually looking at it from a slightly different place of actually being your voice in the world and taking off the mask and all the layers of things that we've sort of taken on from people and places and things and culture around us to really express whatever it is that being us in the world is. And can you talk to us a little bit more about really being the voice of you in the world?
Well, it's really interesting because it will show up different for everyone. And that, I think, is the first thing. It's like, it really isn't about comparing ourselves to anyone else, or it really is like you'll get more and more of a sense of what's true for you and how you would like to express your voice. People do it through painting, through art, through cooking, the way you care for your home, the way you care for your body. I mean, there's so many different ways that really having your voice in the world can show up. So, that's one of the things I share in all my classes. Is like, it really is first kind of getting all that muck out of the way of what we've concluded that our voice should sound like, be like in the world. And then it's really discovering that space of like the lightness of when you are truly expressing it being you, it's really a soft kind of yummy, delicious energy of like, oh, wait, there's like nothing you're proving, defending, protecting. It's just you're being you and really sharing what's true for you. And in my own story, just a bit of, I've been facilitating Right Voice for You Masterclass and other classes around the world. I say in the last 2 years, it's really been, year and a half maybe, where it's really been full on 20 plus days out of home in different parts of the world, Europe and South American. But in that, I almost forget sometimes where I didn't have my voice, so it's like I appreciate these shows and the questions because it's like all of us maybe have those spaces in our lives where like, well, what would it even look like to have my voice? And I tell you, I mean, 5 years ago for me, I looked to everyone else for an answer. I was looking to everyone to let me know if this was right or wrong, or, should I do this? Should I not do that? What's your thought? And not like you can't check in with other people, but it was really not at all trusting it is that I knew or what I desired.
So now this process, right? So if someone's listening and they're like, yes, that's me. I don't even know what, right? What is my voice? You mean it's not just what I'm saying every day?
Yeah.
So what are some of the tools that you use with people in your classes, with clients who are really asking to even just, number one, begin acknowledging what is their true voice and, what is true for them?
Well, one of the things, and, if anybody's like listening live or this as a recording, is just begin to, first of all, I would invite you that even for 10 minutes as we're talking, if you're willing not to judge you. because judgment is such a killer for creation. I mean, you talk the art of creation, it almost cannot exist if you're judging you.
Yeah.
So it really is, as you begin to look at things, it's like, are you willing to actually step out of judgment for just these 10 minutes and go, okay, I'm going to look at some stuff and I'm not going to judge me for it. I'm not going to judge it being right or wrong, good or bad. Because then you can actually begin to look at what you've actually been choosing, but not from the wrongness of you. Just like, okay, that's been a choice. So that would be the first place. It's like, okay, so where do I actually, like, where am I voicing or not voicing my voice? Like, and you'll know, I mean, we all have those spaces like, ooh, I wanted to say that, but I didn't say that, you
Yeah.
know, or I should have said that. I used to live a lot, shoulda, coulda, woulda, kind
Yeah.
of, you know,
Yeah.
after.
Or even hearing yourself. I know there would be a lot of times where I would hear words coming out of my mouth, and as I'm hearing them, I'm having this sense of like, I don't even think that. Like, what am I saying, right? And now I recognize, like, oh, I'm actually voicing someone else's truth here, or I'm picking up on, something that, that someone else is feeling or thinking. And at that time, I didn't have that awareness, and I just was like, oh, why am I saying all these things that's not even true? And it would just get heavier and heavier. And then I'd try and explain why I said that thing that wasn't even true. And it just would get really strange. Yeah. How many other
And,
weird things do we do?
and I love that you're saying that, Rebecca, because that is one of the first tools I learned, was like really beginning to acknowledge, one, that I perceive energy, right? It's like, oh, okay, there's that sense like, yay. And then there's that sense like, no. So that is actually one of the tools that we share and access and we use in Right Voice, is really trusting that as the guidance of like, oh, actually lightness and space is when things are true for me. Heavy and contraction, it isn't. So yes, that is an incredible one, because this piece about how aware we are of all our surroundings. So if we're in a room full of people, we're gonna be aware of them. Some of them of us are so psychically aware. You're gonna be aware of their thoughts, their desires, their needs, that you will find yourself as like, what did I just say?
Yeah.
So that's an incredible tool that we really use in the classes to begin to build that muscle. It's like, oh wait, and to begin to question every thought that comes. It's like, wait, truth, is that mine?
Yeah.
And again, lightness, yes. Contraction, no. And you
Wow.
might be living with a thought and a feeling all your life, and you're like, oh shoot, that's never actually been mine.
Yeah, yeah. A mother who is, afraid of speaking up, or, a father who, yeah, has certain points of view or whatever it is. And yeah, all of a sudden you realize, wait a minute, if all of that is gone, what's left? You talk about taking off the mask, right? And finding really what is underneath there. And it could be a little scary when we take all that stuff off that we've gotten so used to and comfortable with.
And I'd say scary for you as the individual, but also scary for the people around you.
Yeah.
Because we all get used to people being a certain way, reacting a certain way, that when they don't, you're like, wait, I don't
I
know this
don't know you
person.
anymore.
And, I've been divorced for close to 5 years now. And I remember, in a marriage where I really put everything on my husband at the time. And it was like, what did you know? Better parent, better finances, better at everything. And so there was this new muscle, like, wait, what is it that I do know? In following the lightness. But with parenting, it was quite fascinating. As I was parenting my child, who's now 19, in the younger years, I'd find myself sounding like my father in what I was doing or saying. And it would feel weird, right? And then when I was being myself with him more, then it was like, Sylvia, you're wrong. You shouldn't do that with him. You need to be this way. I was like, but it was this sense of like, I never felt like I knew what to do, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
So at the divorce, once I got divorced, and I remember, 2 separate homes, he'd come to my house, and I could then allow myself the space. Actually, this is what works for me. And it was always lighter. It wasn't from being the good parent, the right parent, following the rules. And his father would call me and say things like, okay, so I took the phone away, so can you please not have it, da, da, da. And I was like, wait, actually he's in my home. And so I would have a conversation with him. I would say, hey, I heard, you're not having your phone at your dad's. What happened? Do you feel like I need to take it away, or you can choose something different? And he would. And that was lighter for me.
Yeah.
So choosing to be a parent from what's true for me, not from what I've read is the correct thing. I have a really 19-year-old, a happy yet 19-year-old that enjoys hanging out with me. That wouldn't have been possible without these tools. I'm
Yeah.
not fighting him about what's right and wrong, good and bad. And he's having his voice. He's sharing things with me that I think that's that space when we allow for ourselves and for others of no judgment.
Yeah.
He gets to voice and is out in the world going, what would I like to create?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And all those places that you're really showing me these places where we take on these roles, and it's almost like, I just see it like a closet, and you have all your suits hanging, and it's like, oh, I'm the mom now with the mom suit, and I'm the wife and I have the wife suit, or I'm at work and I
Yes.
have on the at work suit, or out in the community, or wherever, we have these different roles. And it's like, you screw in your little voice box to match your suit. Right?
I
And
love that. I'm going to steal that one. That one's good.
cool. Yeah. And so how much do we do that? And we just kind of do this autopilot, or, just sort of going through the motions of being the role,
Yes.
without really looking at where we are in all of that.
And where we're at and what's actually true for you.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like with everything we actually, like every word we use almost, and this isn't about being all, really detailed about whatever you say, but there's an energy you're creating with what you say and who you be in the world.
Yeah.
And when I look at my relationship with my son, it's like, I'm actually creating a future here. Like there's our relationship. There's, my future as whatever I'm choosing. It's his future. It's the world of who he gets to be in the world. And, as I facilitate even corporate trainings, it's like I'm all, through coaching or different exercise, like who we be and our interactions with everyone creates a different world.
Yeah.
And so it's like, what would we actually like to choose to be and voice in the world that will either, create or decay the future for all of us?
Yeah.
And I think that's been part of what's inspired me to travel and in so many different places is that, wow, there gets to be one, well, not one, but it's almost like inviting people to that possibility of them having their voice and creating their life, which right voice has been for so many.
Yeah. Now, we have this analogy of the mask, and now we played with the suits and the little voice boxes. And, you're traveling the world, and, what are you noticing? Like, do you notice that different cultures, different parts of the world, that's also a place where it can play a role on what people choose, and where they're more willing to express their voice and bring their voice out into the world, or bring it out in different ways?
I appreciate this question, and I've received it before. And one of the things, like as I travel to different countries, it's not like I study a culture or but we as just amazing beings on the planet have very similar things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are a lot of similar places where we limit ourselves, and, in general, the judgment that's there no matter where you're at, what level of socioeconomics, what country, what language. It's like, it's there. It's a big one. So really, it's like almost this like veil of, it's almost like we have been trained not to discover who we are and what our voice is through all ages, all cultures, all languages. So it's like to begin to take that layer off. I tend to have a lot of women in my class, in some countries more than others. And, there's things about relationship, there's things about money, their creativity. But things are changing. Like the people showing up, there is this new desire. It's like, I want to show up.
Yeah.
I don't want to hide. And I think, I'm so grateful for Dr. Dane's book, Being You, Changing the World, because it's sometimes we exclude ourselves thinking, oh, it's just me. Who am I? I'm no one. Like it's just one person wherever I'm at. And it's just like, actually, that's probably what it takes. Like if we all had, and the willingness to look at the gift that we be, it changes things. So there's a different energy in different cultures, and looking at it, I was in Germany in Munich facilitating a Right Voice for You Master Class. And there is like this overlay, like expectations and projections of the culture and the people and tendencies that people have that do come into play. But it's amazing how quickly those can come off and people show up with this joy and this ease and in their body more, with a lot more smiles. And it's like, wow, like that's possible no matter where we're at.
So choice actually creates. We can actually make a different choice regardless of where we grew up or where we live now or what's shown up in the past.
Yes. And you know what's interesting is that, you know, one, I started off by saying, like, if we actually didn't judge ourselves for 10 minutes, like what you could actually become aware of. And also not judging ourselves for what we're willing to choose. You know, like if you're not comparing yourself and, you know, you choose whatever you choose, it's like, that's what you chose, right? It's usually when we're comparing ourselves to other people, it's like, okay, would you like to choose that? Yes. And if you're not choosing it, okay, what else would you like to choose? So yes, like every choice creates, and if you don't judge yourself for it, you can continue to have the joy and the ease, maybe even the play of choosing and creating.
Maybe a little play. Maybe.
I do warn people that is a side effect of classes. You might have a little more joy in play. So if you don't want that, don't come to a class.
Yes, you may laugh a lot more. So what are some of the ways? So, you know, if you know, if someone's watching and they're like, well, you know, I lose my voice, or, you know, all of a sudden I can't speak when I get nervous, or, you know, I don't really have anything to say, or, you know, whatever any of those things are that people have around their voice and speaking. I mean, I know when we talk about our voice, there's so many different ways it can show up, but even just in this one area of speaking and spoken voice, what are some of the ways that you begin to invite and encourage people to start putting that out in the world, right? Okay, so let's disband with the judgment. And now, like, what's next?
Well, one, you know, we talked a little about it already, but it's one, you're going to be aware. I mean, we're making, you know, we're here on your show. It's like there's already an energy present of what we might be perceiving of other people watching it, right? So if you're speaking in front of a group, you're going to be aware of them. So, and I say that because there's times when our bodies gives us signs. We start to sweat in our palms. You feel your voice gets shaky. Your body's trembling. It's like, yeah, that may show up, and it might not all be yours.
Yeah.
You might be aware of other people's discomfort, other people's like anticipation of what you're going to say or not say, or all of that. So one, it's like, if we're willing to acknowledge that, it's like, all right, it can get intense. Yeah. You know, I've spoken in front of 1,000 people, and, you know, yeah, it's a lot of energy. So one, if we don't resist that, right? Okay. Wow. Okay. Don't make it wrong. Cool. The other tool that I love to share that really allows you to almost relax into when you're going to speak is what we call dropping your barriers. And it's this sense of like everywhere we go to protect ourselves, defend ourselves, trying to get it right, that mask, perfection, all of that. You just go, all right. And it really is, you ask and to drop them, and they do. And you drop more and you drop more. There comes a time I say, oh yeah. And it's so funny because when I first started practicing this tool of dropping my barriers, there came a point where it was like, oh, there. And then I've discovered actually that's still the comfortable place for me to drop my barriers. And so lately it's really been this journey of like, if I drop them even more, what's that like? So that sense of I'm going to drop them even more. And when I started to do that, there's this level of vulnerability where I at times get really teary-eyed, like I'm about to cry, because it's this raw sense of perceiving everything, perceiving myself and what I'd like to, you know, perhaps create that I had never been willing to voice. Because then, you know, it's interesting. It's also being aware where you share that, because as, you know, we start to look at what we'd like to create, it is vulnerable. People could turn around and go, you're nuts. You're crazy. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And you got to be willing to go, thank you for your point of view, and continue to choose what you know is true for you.
Yeah. And how much do we also get to acknowledge the gratitude and all the other things that are out there? I mean, there are going to be judgments like, you know, oh my gosh, she is, and it could be, and it could be something like, you know, she looks terrible in that dress, or she, you know, I don't like the way she said that, or like, it could be what we would consider negative, right? But it could also be like, oh my gosh, she's so gorgeous, or oh my gosh, I love those shoes, or oh my God. Right. So that's also a judgment. So you're, when your barriers are up, yeah, okay, maybe you think you're fortifying against that, but you're also keeping everything out, like all the places where people are really willing to receive you, and really willing to acknowledge you, and really, you know, willing to be in that space and in the conversation that you're having. So yeah, it can be a little scary. It seems scary to be able to be that vulnerable and to be that space. And yet, you know, you've been there and you're still alive.
And I would invite people to also try, yes, you're still alive, but to try maybe like just looking at one area. And sometimes it's simply like, where would you like to go eat, right? How many of us get asked that question? Oh, it doesn't matter, right? Is usually, but what if you started to play with that and just go, well, you know, actually today, you know, I'm feeling like, you know, a frozen yogurt. And actually when people ask you, say it. And then they may, but if you don't have a point of view, whether that's what you're going to get or not, then if, you know, say you're with a group and it's like, no, actually, you know, let's go do over here. It's like, okay, because then there's a choice. Like if it's really, if you don't make it significant, you know, great. And I'm talking about yogurt, ice cream, dessert time, right? And yet you could say, well, actually, you know, if we go here, I can get my frozen yogurt and you guys can do that. And then let's meet up. But it's the willingness to begin to play with some of the little spaces that may not be so significant, to begin to voice what it is that we know. You know, and then we talk about maybe being in the boardroom, you know, where that's, you got some ideas and you're going, okay, are they going to think I'm crazy? So that sense of being willing to have the courage to go, you know, actually, what about this?
Yeah.
And if you have your barriers down, there's very few people that can actually push against you. But if you, does that make sense? Like when you have your barriers up, people have something to press against. When you don't have them down and you voice something, it's kind of like, oh, okay. And if you're not attached to the outcome, which is another, you know, whole nother topic.
I love that one.
When you're not attached to the outcome, then it's like, okay, so you get to play again. It's like, so looking for small little areas where you can begin to voice what it is that you would like or what it is that you know.
Yeah. So starting wherever it is that you are, and being willing to play with it and experiment with it, and also get that, you know, sometimes it may have an amazing outcome and sometimes it may have no outcome and sometimes it may be a total flop. And yet it's not about like, oh, I tried it, didn't work, I'm done. Just it's a continuous process of choosing and choosing and choosing again.
And it's really this like, you know, never give up, never quit, never stop energy that we talk about. Incredible telecall just recently on that topic. But it is this energy, or like, are you willing to have that, the courage to never stop, never give up, never quit, of you being true to you, you feeling what's the lightness and what can be received and created in the moment. And it really is this ongoing muscle. And yet once you start to discover it, I mean, in my life, there is so much more joy and ease in my world whenever I'm not out to please everyone. And that was a huge one in my world before. It was all about pleasing others. It still pops up, but now I can be like, oh, interesting, there it is, you know?
Instead of having to rearrange everything to now answer that, you know, that call to be a certain way, or do a certain thing, or say a certain thing. And it doesn't go away. It's just what you choose to now create with it, or, you know, do with it, or be with it.
Yes. And that's a gift too. I mean, your show, The Art of Creation, it's like, you know, what have we defined creation to be that it isn't? And what is it that we haven't even recognized? And so as you choose to have more of this lightness in your world, to choose what's true, that's creating a different energy where more money shows up, more ease. I'm amazed, you know, because I was just in Brazil and I flew out, literally landed, had a class, finished, came back. And the ease in my travel, like all of a sudden I was like, oh, I didn't have to wait in that line. The way it just worked, where I was in the office, they're like, well, just check you in here. I'm all, okay.
I will receive that.
So it is with that, the level, are you willing to actually receive the gifts that the universe has for you as you begin to follow the lightness of what you're choosing and being in the world.
And I love looking at that too, because it's like, you know, we can create so much energetically with what we're being and what we're choosing. And yet we can also practically and pragmatically look at like, oh, it's really interesting. Like just by being that space, you were able to receive the possibility, perceive it first, and then receive the possibility of a different check-in or a different way of going through and not having to do the line. Whereas when our barriers are up, when we've decided, okay, I have to get through this, this is going to be tough, and now I have to go to the line, you're just going to go right to the line so you can go and endure it, you know?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Without even seeing that there was a whole other way of choosing through your situation.
Yes.
So that's where, you know, me personally, I love it because it's like, you know, we have these energetic conversations and it's like, yeah, and it's like, it's occurring all around us and we're creating this all around us and you can even watch it occur, you know, and it's just really by like, what space are we willing to be? And
the two questions that I really love that we would almost say are the two basic questions in Access that I continue to use, but it's more like that's just who I be. Yes. So when you're talking about like, oh, you know, I went up to the line and I looked at it and I thought, well, what else is possible? And then I was like, well, what if I looked into upgrading? So I asked the lady that was there before the line began. She goes, oh, well, you can go into the office. So that's where I headed. But it was really out of the question, well, what else is possible? Yeah. Right? Yeah. But you're correct. Like once we go into this frustration and this like upset, that closes you seeing what else is possible. So that's what headed me over to the office and then, oh, sorry, we don't have any more. The flight is booked. Okay. You know, you could be upset about that, or it was like,
what else is possible?
And she goes, but since you're here, you know, and then it just worked out and then she gave me a window seat and, you know, so it created, and then out of a booked flight, there was no one next to me. So,
oh my goodness.
Exactly.
How's it get any better than that? I love it. You know,
which is the other question. How does it get any better than that? You know, no upgrade. Okay. How does it get any better than that? And what else is possible? Like that, if people were to take those two questions, just even those two questions, if you feel your voice trembling, okay, how does it get any better than this? What else is possible?
Yeah.
You know, if you're starting to speak and you notice that you're actually not speaking what's true for you, okay, wow, how does it get any better than this and what else is possible?
Yeah.
I invite people that if they haven't played with that to really, I mean, I would say play with it for a week and just invite yourself from a space of total curiosity. Okay, what else is possible?
Yeah.
And how does it get any better than this?
Yeah.
Because that's the invitation of the universe to show you.
Yeah. And sometimes things just pop right up and sometimes they don't. And that's when it's like, you know, we're not actually, this is not one of those things where we're putting in an order and like we're expecting the ticket to pop right out, right? It's like, if you can then still be that space of like, you know, I'm going to ask and I'm also going to know that there's going to always be new information. There are always going to be possibilities. And so I'm just going to continue to choose forward. And as these pieces become available, I will be able to perceive them because I'm being the space that allows me to see them instead of being here and trying to get through.
There's two other things as you're saying that. And one, I think where we hear it, or I used to hear it, and you think it can't be that easy. Like it's really, but this energy of joy, when you look at whatever you're creating in your life or you're looking to create, if you don't have that joy in your life right now, like one, it's not wrong. Like really, you know, it really isn't wrong because there's so much in our world we can use, you know, to get upset and not really have that joy of living. But I would invite people to take 30 minutes a day and find what is it that brings you joy. If you like cleaning your house and having it freshly cleaned, then do that, you know. If it's, you know, doing laundry, I mean, it could be anything. Or if it's going out on the walk. I mean, right now I'm outside because I thought like it's too much of a gorgeous day not to like receive from the sun and the greenery. Like, okay, so, you know, I'm outside. Like that's just part of what brings me joy in these 10 seconds. And so it's like, but if you could actually begin to have more of that, it's an energy that adds to all your creations.
Yeah.
It really is. The other thing I wanted to add that, you know, I don't know if you've ever talked to or about Stephen and Chachissa Bowman, who
Yeah.
are an incredible couple that travel the world doing a lot of corporate trainings and a lot of businesses. And they have just a really different perspective. And recently I was in Noosa in December, and I was in a class of theirs. And one of the things that Stephen said that just really changed my perspective, actually two things. One was many others, but two
Yeah.
particular things. One of them was, he's all, because we have to say, well, this isn't fun for me. It's like, I'm not going to do that. It's not fun for me. So fun is just a point of view.
Yeah.
Like, what can you do to change it for it to be fun for you? I love that, because it's
Yeah.
no longer an excuse. Like, well, it's not fun for me. It's like, okay, what can I do
Yeah.
to make it fun for me? The
Yeah.
second, he said, and it was the sense of creation. He goes, anytime you choose something with a result in mind, and then you go to look at that result not being fulfilled or completed, you actually kill all the possibilities that were in creation from your choice.
Yeah.
So every choice, every creation you're doing with the result in mind,
Yeah.
or a choice where you're judging it for not giving you a certain result, you've actually killed all the possibilities. And this is where, like, I see people like Elon Musk and things that he's created, that I heard him speak once, and I thought, like, oh, he's actually using these tools in a different way. Like, he goes, yeah, I'll ask these questions, and then I just let him go.
Yeah.
And then things show up. I thought, that's it. Like, if we could detach from the demand that we have for something to show up, and it's actually like, go, wow, what would it take?
Yeah.
And let it go and follow the lightness in your world, it'll show up. And
Yeah.
I know it sounds radically and crazy, like too easy and foo-foo, but there is something energetically that I know is true about choosing the lightness that then invites you to different possibilities and new choices to create what you'd like to have.
Yeah. And then using your voice as that vehicle to really bring it out into the world and to really invite other people to that.
And I mean, I wonder, Rebecca, I don't think I've ever asked you, like, what invited you to have your show? I mean, this is you bringing your voice and other people's voice to the world.
Yeah.
Like, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Just perceiving that space that's possible. And, I, thank you for asking. I don't
Yeah.
ever really talk about myself on the show. But yeah, you did ask. So, just being aware and knowing that there are so many different possibilities that are available, so many different tools that are available, and so many different just places from which different people use the tools, and see what's possible with the different tools, and different tools that people have from all different backgrounds and experiences. And just knowing that there are people out there that may be asking in whatever way that are asking what else is possible, whether they use those words or not. And just, I love that people who watch the show, they've heard me say this a lot, but I have an expression, eat the fish, spit out the bones. And it's it's one of my sort of my go-tos in life, because it's like, give me lots of fish and let's take what works, and then the bones, it's okay. We can let go of them. And so just this possibility of being able to bring so many different people. I'm very blessed to know so many amazing people that do have so many experiences traveling around the world, talking to so many different people in any given day, let alone over the course of a year. And to be able to then bring that voice and each of their voices into the world, and just anyone who's watching to get the sense of like, oh, that's something that I've never looked at before. Oh, that's something I've never heard. Or, oh, that applies to me. And then see that there's a new possibility for them, right? There's the story of the starfish, right? The woman on the beach with all the starfish, and the young child says, well, there's no way you can throw all of them back. And she says, yes, but it matters to the ones that I do. And it's that sense of like, I have no attachment to who chooses what and what people choose as fish and what they choose as bones, but it's that thing of like, hey, we have all of this magic available. We have all of these possibilities. We have, all these different choices that we can make, and all these choices that really we can craft and create our lives with. And so just making that available to more people in the world is super fun and light. And that's, that's me following the energy and the butterflies.
And it's so great because, and you have such this unique way of being that in the world, and this is where it's like, some people think, well, that's been done, or it's like, actually, no, not the way you can. So your invitation to the world and to the people you invite is such a gift. And that's, for me, been the gift of Right Voice, is really inviting people to say, hey, there is actually no one else like you. And there might be something that you get to voice that only certain people will receive. Yes. So it's almost an injustice for you not to voice what it is that is possible in the world.
Yeah.
And I joke around sometimes with Donald Trump, our president, when I started to hear him speak, I say I had, Dr. Dane and Gary Douglas have been a huge inspiration in my life. And then in just what I've chosen and how much I've opened up. But then I say it's Donald Trump and my friend Melanie Clampett. One, because Donald Trump, I started to hear him speak and I said, all right, he's willing to say whatever he's willing to say and create what he's creating. And I'm not willing to voice what it is that I know. That's just not okay anymore. Right. It really isn't. And then I've added, he's willing to have billions of dollars. It's just not okay for me to have more money. So that's a topic for a whole nother day. And my friend Melanie Clampett, she chose to go when they were doing all the things with the pipelines and everything. Yes. She was actually up and in the front line there. And what she was choosing, and she turned around, twice, many times, but two particular times really shifted what I was choosing in my life. And she goes, Sylvia, what is it that is possible in the world? Because you have people listening. Yeah. And I thought, who, me? Like, I don't know, you disregard it. And then I started to look at it and it was like, oh, shoot. Yeah. If I could voice anything in the world that would create a greater planet, what would that be? Yeah. And so, some people call it a mission or a purpose. I don't really see it that way. It really is just a choice right now. Yeah. And that's what has me relentlessly, I would say tirelessly, unstoppably traveling the world 20 plus days a month now. Wow. Yeah.
Just being it and bringing it.
Yeah. And I see some incredible change in people's worlds, and that's the platform that works for me right now. And, when it changes, how it changes, I'm open to following that. And, I invite people, it's like, well, what is it for you? What is it that is possible, that no one else knows possible, that only you can voice the way you voice it? Yeah.
And how much more can we create when we let go of the outcome, right? I mean, how much of I know you mentioned when Steve and, he talked about that, but it really is, just to really kind of highlight that again, right? As soon as we decide what the outcome has to be, all of a sudden, all the play is squeezed out, all the possibility is squeezed out, and the joy, and also, like, we don't know everything necessarily of how everything is going to unfold from this fixed point in time and space, right? And so it just seems really silly to say, like, I'm going to navigate, I've never seen a map, but I'm gonna drive from here to Houston and it's going to be just like this, but you've never seen a map, you've never been there before. I mean, it's, we laugh, that's ridiculous. And yet how often do we attempt to live our lives that way and measure success at how well we were able to do it that way?
Yes.
And it's insanity.
Total insanity. And when you said this, like, we don't know, and yet energetically, and this has been my exploration, and I say my biggest growth within Access Consciousness was acknowledging how much energetically I am aware, that I don't have to go to my head about it, to reason, to justify, to prove why I'm choosing what I'm choosing. But energetically, as I've been choosing more and what I see it creating, and that's what makes it so irrational and for some people crazy and scary, because they're like, what? And yet, as I continue to choose, there is a trust in me, a trust in the universe, and to continue to keep asking,
Yeah. So, and I mean, you can definitely perceive, really play with perceiving what's coming, what's possible, right? I mean, it's not this thing of like, I have no idea, but it's that thing of like, it may not look exactly the way that you anticipate. So, just give it a little more space. But it's sort of that analogy of like, driving in the dark, right? I mean, you may not know every turn in advance to be able to say, I'm going to do this and then this and then this and then this. But it's that thing of like, okay, if it's really foggy, if you're driving, all you have to do is just see that little strip of white, just, a little bit ahead and, and just a little bit ahead and just a little bit ahead and just staying present with that and being aware of, okay, this is what is now. This is what I'm choosing. This is what is now. This is what I'm choosing. This is what is now. This is what I'm choosing. And so, from moment to moment, but you don't have to figure it all out in advance and kind of pin it all down before you get in the car.
Yes. And that space of also acknowledging, because I love that. Thank you, Rebecca, because it is like, it's every little choice is going to create the next. Yeah. I think it's the Indiana Jones one, where he's like crossing and he can only see the next one once he steps down.
Yes.
So it's like, it does have an intensity to it, this sense of like where worry and maybe fear show up to distract us from taking that next step. But it's like, it really is a muscle that we build and begin to trust ourselves.
Yeah.
The one question I would love to leave with the people listening is one that I've used for some of the big and little choices that I still use today. But it's again, that muscle of trusting that I can be aware of any choice I make, what it's going to create in my future. Does it expand it or does it feel like it contracts it? And it is this sense. I mean, I say feel, but it's like, it will just be, it's like, oh, wow. Or, and it's, again, I invite people, try it out with some things, but it is. So if I choose this, what will my life be like in 5 or 10 years? Or 5 and 10 years? And you get a sense, is it going to do this to your world? And it's far enough where you're not cognitively looking at the result, but you're looking at what it's going to create in your future. And then you go the other way. So if I don't choose this, what will my life be like in 5, 10 years? And that has actually assisted me in some of those big choices that I was still looking at, right and wrong, good and bad, that have expanded my world tremendously. And so that's one I do invite people to play with.
Yeah. And even, for people maybe who are more kinesthetic or maybe more in their bodies or this idea of sensing energy, if you're like, sometimes too, like, just invite your body to this. And it's like for me, there's a lightness would show up more of like a, right. And a maybe not so much would be more of like, or a, or a, or, or somewhere in my body, something may show up. Right. So just, what can your body contribute to that too? And what can your body contribute to the voice?
So much.
Right. I mean, expressing, I speak with my hands. And so what if we, use all of our body as part of what we're voicing and being in the world, and how much more fun and joy can we have when we're not just, trying to make it all live up here.
And all those things we actually play with in Right Voice, if there's a stage or just coming to the front of the room, of really having a sense of all of that. Like if you're just in your head, really using, almost exaggerating your body. And I kid you not, just about every person that begins to be in the body is like, oh, that was so fun. There was a lightness to that. Like our body desires to really create with us and contribute. So use all the hands, see once.
Awesome. I love it. Well, Sylvia, this has been so fun. I'm so grateful to you. And I wonder, how can people find you? Where can they have more of you? Where can they come see you in person? How can they find you?
Yeah. So definitely on the Access website. So it's, accessconsciousness.com/Sylvia Puentes. I try to post all my classes up there. So most of them are up there. And I will say, if there's any class that you see is either Spanish, Portuguese, English, which are the, I've done the German. I do have translators that either come out to my classes. So there's no language that is off the table.
Awesome.
So if you end up passing this on, or someone that speaks another language, that's always a possibility. So,
You have your voice in all languages. How does it get any better than that?
and you can definitely find me on Facebook. So it's Sylvia Puentes. That's with a P, Puentes. So I have a page in my timeline there, personal timeline. And I'd like to say my website is up, but it's not. So that's not there yet, which, it's interesting as I'm creating, going so quickly, some of those systems. It's like, okay, if I'm not judging me, it definitely hasn't stopped me. And
Yeah.
what else could it create? So,
Yeah.
but definitely Access website and Facebook are two main places. I do have a YouTube channel. There's things there in Spanish and English. So people could always look in there as well. But rightvoiceforyou.com is another one where there's facilitators around the world that do intros one day and then the 3-day masterclass. So if that invites, you to a possibility, check it out, because it definitely is a specialty program within Access that is unlike any other one.
Yes, I concur with that. My so all of those links will be in the show notes, so you can actually go down there and click away. So thank you again, Sylvia, for joining us. It's been a pleasure to have you.
You are so welcome.
In Colombia, and everyone joining us for the show. Thank you for being here. As always, without you, it would just be Sylvia and I having a conversation, and we're so grateful for you co-creating and adding your energy to the show. If you've liked it, please do like the Facebook page, subscribe to the YouTube channel, tell all your friends, and let us know if there's anyone else you'd like to see on the show, any questions that you have, and any different topics that you'd love to discover together. So thank you, everyone. Happy choosing. We'll see you next week. I wonder what we'll discover next. Bye-bye.